Okay, quick video. I've been seeing a number of people responding to this story about Dr. Fauci's funded research of puppies that were eaten alive by sandflies for science. This dovetails quite nicely with a previous video I did against science more generally. But I've heard a number of people say something like, why are we caring so much about dogs? Have you not been paying attention to what's been going on with the children? What's been going on with, our Constitution and all this other stuff? And I thought it's a worthwhile point to explore and explain. Why does it bother people so much more to see these dogs tortured than all of these other far more objectively serious civil matters going on? And it goes like this. Dogs, how you treat dogs is a kind of litmus test for how you will treat people when you are in a position of power. You know the old story, and I think this is clinically true, that the best warning signs for antisocial sociopathy in children is abuse of animals, torture and killing pets, dogs, cats, so forth. It says something about your character. And so what we've seen with face mask mandates and vaccine mandates and holding schools hostage until parents do the things and kids being forced to wear masks even though they're not really at risk of this anyways, that was all plausibly guided by good intentions. I'm not saying it was guided by good intentions. I'm saying it's plausibly guided by good intentions. Maybe they're screwing up, maybe they're making the wrong choice, but maybe they're trying. Maybe they're trying to do the right thing. But when you see the images of what these, the conditions these dogs are in, having their vocal cords slit so that the researchers don't have to hear the yowling and the whimpering and the crying of these puppies. And I mean, it makes you wonder. I'm sure there's some legitimate reason for why they would have their faces eaten by flies. I'm sure there's some legitimate scientific knowledge that could be gained by that, related to COVID, perhaps. I'm sure there's something there. But regardless, the fact that there aren't ethical constraints against that says something to people at an emotional level about the sorts of people who are making these decisions. It tells them that animals that have as deep of a connection with humans as dogs can be and are to be treated as disposable tools of experiments in a very visually visceral manner. And it sort of confirms a suspicion that a lot of us have had, and I think even people on the left have been beginning to consider, that perhaps we, the lay public, are viewed in something like that disposable manner as well by the people making these decisions. That what is best for the country in the abstract doesn't necessarily align with what is best for your interests as an individual, which was the assumption before. And so, why do we care about the dogs when all these bad things have been happening to the to our civil rights and to our children and to our nation and so forth for the last year and a half? Well, it's because it sort of visually reframes everything. And for those of us who are skeptical of the government's intentions from the beginning, maybe that's not that big of a reframe. But to people who are maybe on the fence about it, how do you justify hurting puppies? Our responses to COVID have not been very good for dogs. if you noticed. In Australia, or in the United States, or in wherever part of Africa this research was being funded out of. Not great for dogs. Doesn't seem to be. So, for those people who are motivated by compassion about helping people and protecting other sentient life, human or animal, especially something as emotional and connected as a canine, might be a bit of cognitive dissonance. Don't underestimate the power of this story. I was reminded of a story that Sam Harris relates in Waking Up, of American students of spiritual practice who are duped by pseudo-spiritual gurus in India who convince all these American men that it's important for their spiritual development that the gurus sleep with all their wives. And of course, the men are like, oh yes, of course, whatever you say, and without question. But then the Americans notice the guru learn about ice cream and begin to develop an addiction for ice cream, eating ice cream for breakfast in the morning. It wasn't when the guru slept with their wives. It was when the guru started to eat ice cream without any apparent discipline that finally got the Americans going, hang on a second here, something isn't right about this. And of course, the way Sam Harris related this is obviously a depiction of the irrationality and stupidity and gullibility of Americans looking to become spiritual. But I think that's a very uncharitable interpretation. And I think the proper interpretation is that sometimes the minor stories that reframe everything else that's been going on are more important than these major events, as they were. It's a very useful way of looking at history, and a very useful way of looking at current events, and perhaps also a useful way of judging character at a more interpersonal level. So, short answer, I think that is why people care about the dogs, and perhaps why we should too.